Hey friends, it's Roger Spear from Good Shepherd. It's been a great week hanging out with you and making art and seeing different art posts and things on social media, and it's just been a fun experiment for me with the idea of this digital VBS. So today, on our last day, we are going to make something for you and for your family, and it's going to be both a memento of the digital VBS time that you've had this week and also of the quarantine and the fight against COVID-19 as a whole. It's something you're going to need your entire family to do, but just for a couple of seconds, and then it can come back to you by yourself. You're going to need a piece of paper that is tougher than printer paper. I'm using poster board because I had that laying around. So a piece of poster paper, I cut mine to 8 inches by 10 inches so I can put it into a frame later. You're also going to need a pencil. You're going to need a black marker. This time you're going to need for sure to be a Sharpie or something that has alcohol ink, not a watercolor marker like a Crayola marker or something. And then you're going to need one of those little trays of watercolors you have hanging around your house. And of course, if you don't have watercolors, you can flip out for markers or flip out for crayons or something else if you want to. It's just color is basically the idea. So gather all those resources, hit pause, and when you get everything together, we'll get started. Here we go. You want to make sure to work on the flat side, the side that is not shiny. So there's a shiny side to poster board and a not shiny side. So we're going to use the not shiny side. So the very first thing that you're going to want to do is to get your family together. And you've probably seen this before on the net, but you're going to do hand prints of everybody in your family. There are 3 people in my family, me and my wife Fran and my son Finn. Okay, it's interesting. Fran and I are both left-handed, but Finn is right-handed. So it makes for an interesting pattern. You're going to go ahead and have whoever has the biggest hand. It doesn't have to be dad. It's just whoever has the largest hand should go first. We found it's easier that way. And then the next biggest hand, because then you lay your palm at the bottom right here of the big hand. And the next hand does its outline, and then you just keep going with the smaller and smaller hands of people. After you get the hands drawn, then you're going to put a title up at the top. You can do this in different ways. You can do Quarantine 2020. For us, I think we're going to do our family name, Spear. This is my sketch version on a piece of printer paper. So we're going to write the name Spear out. You're going to write your last name and get some help with adults if you need like fancier letters or bigger letters or anything like that. We're going to write down Quarantine 2020 as part of it, or the actual date of today. And this whole thing goes in line with today's scripture from Acts about how the people lived, and they lived as God would have them live, and God added to their number because they gave freely to each other. They acted and they lived their lives like they were all one big family. And so here is how this works. Now, it doesn't have to be your immediate family. This could be you and a bunch of your friends. Put your hands down. This could be people from church. Put your hands down. You could do this however you want to, but it's establishing that concept from the Acts reading today about how the world works when God is at the center of everything. We then went and wrote down at the time what was our memory, or what was it that struck us most about this time that we spent during the quarantine. And each of us I just wrote down, Fran wrote her own here, I wrote mine, I also wrote Finn's down. So you want to have something around all of this that kind of keeps it as a memento of this thing that you've been through and how you stuck together as a family, how you continued in the apostles' teaching and fellowship as a family. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to stop and I'm going to write in the Spear name the way that I want it. I suggest you take some time and write in your name up the top here the way that you want it. And we'll come back, and that way we'll finish our pencils and sketching phase, and we'll go on into our inking phase and see what happens next with that. Okay, be right back. Okay, so the way that I did Spear on this thing was to just draw a letter, and then I just drew a letter right beside it on top of it, and I connected the lines. We've done this in an earlier video. Connected the lines, filled in the gap, and that way it's just my handwriting rather than trying to learn a new skill or a new font or anything that can be a whole big time consuming. This is a great way of doing like a calligraphy type look without having to do the extra work for it. Okay, so just your handwriting, write out your letters and then write a second one on top of it and then split the difference and fill it in and you get one of these. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is that same exact process. We're going to ink up these lines on the hands. If you're a younger person, this is a great chance to just sit down and practice drawing lines and tracing what's on the paper. Okay, you're going to do one line and then a second line next to it, and then you're going to fill in all the little white spaces between the two lines. And you're going to go through and fill in every line that makes up all of the hands, whether there's 3 or 63, the different hands on your piece. So, one thing to remember is that if you're left-handed like I am, you want to start on the right hand of the paper and work left. I'm not doing the whole hand and then coming back and doing another hand. I'm doing all the lines on the farthest most right, and you can see I'm moving over to the left. I'm doing that because even though I'm using a Sharpie here, and that's not, like, it dries pretty quick, but even on the offhand chance that I was moving around this thing and my palm could drag and smear the black and make it a kind of a mess. If you're right-handed, you want to start on this side of the paper and move this way, filling in everything as you go, just like you would if you wrote. Another tip is that when you're doing these black line projects, don't try to move your hand around, and just twist the paper to where it's more comfortable for your hand. The lines are always going to be better if you and your hand are more comfortable. So you just rotate the paper around so that you're doing all of your line work in a comfortable position. I don't want to have to, like, this movement for me is uncomfortable. See how hard that was for me? It's a little shaky and stuff. But if I spin this around, it's just easier going the other way. So constantly spin your paper while you're doing this line work. Oh, look, see what I did there? I smeared it all around. So I'm gonna have to go back over that. And I wasn't paying attention, obviously. To make it a little bit thicker, bring it out here so I can hide in all the schmear. There you go. Okay, you'll see this is just that typical Crayola washable watercolors palette. And you will see that this looks really familiar. There is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. These guys gives you the extra 2 colors of brown and black. You could use those. We probably won't be using those as much, but this is the same idea that we've been using about the color wheel, okay? You could choose the primary colors, the secondary colors, the warm colors, and the cool colors. You can do all those different color themes as you want to, okay? I'm gonna use the brush that comes with the thing, just so I'm doing it along with everybody who has that. If you have fancy brushes, you can use this. I've got tons of fancy brushes, but I'm not going to use them today. So we are going to, in my trusty Jesus Chattis, get some water, and I'm going to start with light colors first. Watercolors are, it's interesting, when we're talking about crayons, we're talking about laying the dark colors down first, right? Well, here in watercolors, we got to think from light to dark. And you also have to think from back to front, and not like from the thing that's farthest away from you to the thing that's the closest to you. So the farthest away piece of this whole thing is the paper that's around the hands, okay? So here's a couple little things that'll help you. First of all, you wanna make sure there's a bunch of water in this little tray. We're gonna take that yellow, I'm gonna start with lightest color, furthest back, and I'm just gonna fill in this area behind. Now when I come up to a line, I don't want to paint along the line because I might go over it. I just went over it a little bit there, you probably can't see it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the brush gently up into the black line so that I know for sure that the paint has not gone over that line and into the next space. The more water you use, the thinner the paint gets, the lighter the color goes, okay? So I have my yellow done all around the paper. And what I'm going to do, especially because I still have this black part where I smudged the marker over here, I'm going to use a complementary color, which is the color that's opposite yellow on the color wheel. So I'm going along the edge of the paper here, pulling this color down in. The yellow is still damp. It's not actually wet, but it's definitely damp. I just took a drop of water onto my brush, and that way I can kind of smear the purple paint around a little bit more. The water that I'm using now will actually loosen up the yellow pigment below it so that it mixes with the purple. One cool technique with watercolor is, you see I've just taken a full brush full of purple and I've laid it down and just kind of moved my brush, wiggled it back and forth. I'm gonna go into my water. I'm gonna take most of the water out before I touch the paper again. Come alongside that and you pull that color out. Now you see that the further I get away from that original stripe of purple, the lighter it's gonna become, right? Because there's just less purple paint. I'm thinning it out with the water, okay? So small little strokes. I'm actually just touching the paper right now. And then I'm gonna bring more water, run my brush along the side of the cup so I don't have a whole bunch of water. And do the same thing with the other side and pull that purple into the yellow. Again, what's happening is the water is actually loosening up the yellow paint underneath of it on the paper, and it's mixing the two of those together. And as you do this on your own paper, we're gonna look and see that the color that yellow and purple mix is kind of like a really weird brown looking color. I mean, it's looking kind of nice. Okay, I think I'm gonna take some blue actually, blue being next to the purple. I'm just gonna dip the brush in there and twirl it around a little bit so that the point is not flat. And I'm just gonna do that same thing with some blue. Just wiggle that paint in. And then I'm gonna go to the dirty water and clean off. So I'm gonna take that blue and I'm moving it. And you see that the paper here is actually got like a little film, a little sheen of water sitting on it. So I'm just kind of rolling the blue around just to see what kind of effects and looks I can get from it, because it's just cool. Over here, the blue is dried already along that edge, so I dipped my dipped my brush back into my water, and I just like swirl around a little bit on that hard blue line where it's dried, and it loosens right up. And then I can blend it into the stuff that's behind it. Okay? And so I'm just tapping things here. I'm just playing around with color, trying to get something that looks pretty cool. So this is the part where you have to get a plan. Some things you can kind of wing it and feel through and get an idea on what you think you should do next. Other things you really have to make a plan for. This is one of them, because what we're gonna do is lay down color. We're gonna do the big hand, the medium hand, the little hand. We're gonna do it in a solid set of color, and then we're gonna come back to that later and add in some more stuff. So I think what I would like to do is to lay down lighter colors and go to darker colors. So, but I want to keep it, since this is such a nice warm background, I think I'm going to do the big hand in green, and then the medium hand in blue, and the little hand in purple. And we're going to see how that goes. But I'm going to fill in the entire part of this this big hand with green. So I'm going to lots of water. I'm using dirty water for this. You could use clean water whenever you start things up, but I'm really saving that clean water for whenever I want to blend colors and I don't want to use dirty water to do it with, okay? So I've got a lot of green. I'm swirling around for a nice long time on my little cake. And same couple of hints, clues, tips, whatever you call them. Don't try to paint along a line. Try to paint up to it. That way you can see exactly where your brush bristles are. Don't try and do it like a brush, see, I just went over right there, trying to do it like I would a pencil. That's what I was trying to do. Okay, so I've let this all dry. And next step here is to load up with some blue. And I'm just gonna take the next hand and repeat the same thing with the blue right on top of the green. I've mixed up some more purple, and instead of just letting the blue dry and then bringing the purple on top of it, I'm actually gonna play around with just putting the purple on while the blue is still wet. And I'm doing the same thing as I've done the whole time, is I'm pushing the darker part, when the brush comes off of the cake, I'm pushing that darker color right up to the edge and then pulling it into the center. I think it's gonna look pretty cool with the swirling blue and purple. So let me get that done, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like in the end. So there you go, green, blue, purple. One of the tricks about letting these colors kind of form all over each other is, again, you don't want to brush, and try to mix the colors together. You just want to dab and lay the watercolor on top of the previous colors before and let them mix themselves. You don't need to do much of anything with your brush to make that purple go from like the reddy color here to the dark bluey color here and all the stuff in between. Most of the time, all I did was just tap the paper with the brush loaded up with purple paint. Okay, so this is the end of the watercolor part. I'm gonna close these, put those away, let them dry out. The next part, the last part of this project, is to let the people of your family write around the outside edges their memories of the quarantine. What was it that you thought was the best part of being stuck together in a house for months at a time? What was it that you learned? What was it that how did you grow? How did God increase you like God increased the apostles in the Acts reading today? How did God make your life bigger, deeper, broader? How was it that the way that you treated your neighbors, your family, how was it that affected you and made you better? It has been so much fun making art with you this week, teaching you all the little tips and tricks that I've picked up along the way. I hope you continue to make stuff, and I hope you continue to see that your art is a gift and that art can be a ministry to others, that you can use art to spread the gospel, and that there are all kinds of ways that your hands and your heart and your eyes can come together to make beautiful, beautiful things. So have a great week, have a great summer, and we'll see you around. Bye-bye.